and disaggregated data currently captured by the Department of Education's reports, including reporting on the evaluation for and the provision of special education services to include students who are in foster care or in temporary housing. Introduction 576A, also sponsored by Councilmember Joseph, would require the Department of Parks and Recreation to inspect and issue a report on each public restroom under its jurisdiction that has routinely been given an unacceptable rating after inspection. The report would be required to be published on the department's website. And now I will ask, I didn't know you were over there. I will ask Councilmember Joseph to come to the podium and tell us about her legislation.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Speaker, Majority Leader, colleagues. I'm thrilled to witness the passage of my two-bill intro 857A, local law to amend the administrative code for City of New York in relations to expanded data in Department of Education, including metrics on students in foster care and students in temporary housing. As I frequently emphasize both in the council and whenever I get a chance to talk about this topic, students in foster care and students in temporary housing have a very special place in my heart. And my thought, as a mother of two boys who were part of the foster care system and now as the chair of the Education Committee, I'm proud I get to pass this legislation that would improve their lives and make sure that they're heard and seen and taken over in our education system. Intro 576A, a local law to amend the Administrative Code of New York City in relation to requiring reporting on the features and conditions of public restroom. A thing that's been deep in my heart. This bill I introduced in collaboration with Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine. I'm proud to finally be able to say to all New Yorkers, visitors, and tourists that our public bathrooms in all New York City parks and playgrounds will be available, accessible, and clean for them to use freely. The efforts to introduce the bill, draft them, now get them passed, have been the hard work and collaboration of numerous partners, Borough President and his team, Advocates for Children, especially Randy Levine and our co-sponsors, and of course my amazing speaker, legislative team, and my amazing team, and thank you for your support and the hard work, and the marathon continues in the great word of Nipsey Hussle. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Joseph, and for keeping the memory of Nipsey Hussle alive. Introduction 1065A, sponsored by Councilmember Eric Bottcher, would require the creation of an urban forest plan that aims to expand the tree canopy from the current 22% coverage to 30% coverage. The plan will be required to evaluate the distribution, health, and stability of the city's urban forest, identify the causes of urban forest gain or reduction, and recommend strategies to remediate any urban forest loss. The legislation also requires an outreach plan to educate property owners on how to protect and expand the trees and vegetation located on private property. I invite Councilmember Bottcher to discuss his legislation.
Thank you so much, Speaker Adams. If it wasn't obvious before, last Friday, our planet sent us a message. Our planet is crying out for help, and the severe flooding that we saw in New York City is another huge flashing warning sign that we need to take drastic action to address the effects of climate change. And one of the things we can do and must do is increase the amount of permeable surface around New York City. The water had nowhere to go. Our underground infrastructure is inadequate, and the amount of permeable surface is inadequate. So the legislation that we're passing today, Intro 1065, will require the city to establish an urban forest master plan with a goal of 30% tree canopy coverage across New York City. This has so many benefits in addition to mitigating the effects of stormwater runoff. Trees clean the air. They provide habitats for birds and insects. They slow traffic, blocks with more street trees, cars drive slower, and they shade neighborhoods. Neighborhoods with street tree coverage are significantly cooler in the summer months. So we're doing more than just calling for this. We're legislating it. In our council district, Council District 3, we've planted over 500 street trees since I took office. We're going to be planting a lot more. I really want to thank Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan, the chair of the Parks Committee, Councilmember Brewer, who has a related piece of legislation to this, and the Forest for All Coalition, and everyone who's been part of this movement to create a canopy of trees in all neighborhoods of New York City. And thank you to you, Speaker Adams, for your leadership as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Bottcher. Next, we'll vote on Introduction 703A, sponsored by Councilmember Sean Abreu, which would require the Department of Social Services to submit a quarterly report on the timeliness of rental assistance payments to the council and for publication on its website. Yep, starting March 1st, 2024. This legislation will help address late payments of CityFEP's rental assistance vouchers, a growing problem that places New Yorkers at risk of evictions. And I'll call Councilmember Abreu to discuss his bill.
Thank you, Speaker Adams. In April, I stood in this very spot to celebrate the passage of Intro 704, which requires the city to allow landlords to opt in to an instant electronic delivery of rental assistance payments from the HRA. The goal of the legislation was clear: to reduce the risk of late, incorrect, or undelivered voucher checks and the eviction proceedings that followed missed payments from the city. The stakes are too dire. We cannot leave rental payments up to chance. We cannot continue to making our housing system more onerous than it already is. I am proud to stand here again as the council prepares to pass Intro 703 into law. Intro 703 builds onto 704 by analyzing and addressing the timeliness of rental assistance payments sent by HRA. With the passage of this bill, DSS is obligated to submit quarterly reports to the Speaker on whether rental assistance payments are sent on time to landlords on behalf of tenants receiving assistance. This report will be a detailed ledger filled with data on rental assistance payment amounts, the payment month, the zip code of the recipient, whether the payment was timely or late and why, and a description of steps to ensure timely payment in the immediate future. It's good government at work, making sure that we have transparency so that we know whether or not the government is making payments on time. It has an obligation to keep folks in their home. To think that government is contributing to our housing crises is really difficult to swallow. And today the council is taking leadership to making sure we hold the administration accountable. This data will be critical to evaluating and fixing avoidable bureaucratic errors and turning our attention to neighborhoods most impacted by missed payments. I'm thrilled we're taking action today. Thank you, Speaker Adams, for your support, and I look forward to today's passage.
Thank you so much, Council Member. Introduction 78A, sponsored by Councilmember Gail Brewer, would require the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection to create an informational campaign concerning workers' rights under the Earn Safe and Sick Time Act. The campaign would include the distribution of flyers, posters, and other written materials through pharmacies, doctors' offices, and other health-related institutions to educate the public and workforce. Introduction 818, also sponsored by Councilmember Brewer, would require the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection to implement an outreach and education campaign regarding the Temporary Schedule Change Act. Under this law, covered employees have the right to temporary changes in their work schedule for certain personal events. The outreach and education materials shall be provided to employers, employees, and members of the public who are likely to be affected by the law. I invite Councilmember Brewer to the podium to discuss her bills.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I am delighted to be talking about these two bills, 78 and 818. They are talking specifically about informational campaigns on the Earn Safe and Sick Time Act, I call it the Paid Sick Time Act, and Temporary Schedule Change Act. I note that these votes coincide with the 10th anniversary of the passage of the city's Earned Sick Time Law, Local Law 78, which on the Earned Sick Time Law, I spent a great deal of time when I was in the city council before. It was a coalition then and continues of a better balance, Community Service Society, Make the Road, TWA, and labor partners and working families, all the doctors and nurses and parents, everyone helped with that law 10 years ago. And it guaranteed paid time off for 3.4 million private sector workers across New York, 1.2 million at the time who had no access to paid sick time before the law was passed in 2013. Since then, thanks to the council, that law has been amended multiple times, expanding the definition of family, adding domestic violence purposes, and increasing the time available for workers at larger employers. Passed in 2017, the Temporary Schedule Change Act, that's related to 818 today, was part of a council package of laws under the umbrella of Fair Work Week and Fast Food Worker Empowerment. Those bills representing a critical step toward providing economic opportunity for workers without placing unnecessary restrictions on businesses. Yet 2 years before the above bills passed about the schedule change, Community Service Society assessed the impact of the Fair Work Week laws, including that unpredictable scheduling abuses are still widespread, especially in the retail and restaurant sectors where there are many low-wage workers. And last year, A Better Balance and Community Service Society published a report finding that over half of low-income women and many others were unaware of the access to this paid sick and also to the opportunity to not have their schedule changed without making sure they know about it. We all know that real change doesn't end with the passage of any law, so you need outreach and you need engagement. I want to thank Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine for his partnership on Intro 78, and certainly everyone at CSS for their ongoing support. The paid sick days bill, as I call it, will also be always known as Nancy Rankin's bill because she was the one who wrote it originally. I also want to thank Sherry Lewin and everybody at A Better Balance because they continue to fight for everybody. All the people on the committee, certainly the Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection, the Committee on Civil Service, and all the amazing people from the Speaker's staff, and also Schuler, Warren, Puder from my staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Brewer. And Introduction 1094A, sponsored by Criminal Justice Committee Chair Carlina Rivera, would require the Department of Correction to record all interactions when an incarcerated individual is informed of their scheduled court appearance. It would also require DOC to provide this information and real-time updates regarding an incarcerated individual's departure from their housing facility on the date of a scheduled appearance to defense attorneys. In addition, monthly data on court production outcomes would be required for submission to the mayor, the council, and DOC's website. More than 1/4 of people detained in our city's jails were not brought to court on time for their hearings and trials between September and December 2022. This record high rate of failure has contributed to growing lengths of stay for those detained in city jails. An April report by the Federal Monitor found that the average stay is 115 days, which is 4 times the national average. The longer those who are incarcerated stay in jail, the larger our jail population, and that must be resolved as we get closer to the 2027 deadline to close Rikers. It is critical that our city government takes steps to ensure those who are detained are brought to their court hearings and trials on time, and this legislation will help advance those efforts. Just this morning, we learned about the death of a 27-year-old man at Rikers. His death marks the 9th death at Rikers this year and follows on the heels of Danny Ubera's death just 6 weeks ago. As these deaths and the continued violence underscore, public safety demands that we close Rikers without delay. And now I invite Councilmember Rivera to the podium to discuss this legislation.
Thank you very much. I also want to thank you, Madam Speaker, for your consistent leadership on this issue. It is absolutely imperative that we do everything we can to avoid the lengths of stay at Rikers that are now above 100 days. So I want to thank you again for your support. I want to thank Councilmember Brewer for her support as well, and Oversight and Investigation team. Proud to be here for Intro 1094. It will require the Department of Correction to record video interactions in which an incarcerated individual is informed about a scheduled court appearance, and upon request, make sure that these videos are provided to a defense attorney within 3 business days. This bill also requires the department to establish a means to provide real-time information on incarcerated individuals' departures from their housing facilities. Finally, the bill requires monthly public reporting on court production outcomes, including the number of individuals not delivered to their court appearance, arrival times, and how often use of force is required to compel court attendance. Public defenders, family on behalf of detainees, and advocates testified at a May City Council hearing that incarcerated people charged with crimes are regularly not being brought to their court appearances, even though ensuring that they get to court is the primary reason why they are being held before trial. This legislation ensures accountability on both sides. All stakeholders agree the most impactful way we can reduce the numbers at Rikers Island is to improve case processing and reduce the length of stay. Nearly a quarter of the individuals at Rikers have been in custody for over a year, and 87% of those on Rikers are there pre-trial. Between 2016 and 2022, the average length of stay at Rikers increased 89% from 61 days to 115 days. Extended time in pre-trial detention is bad for everyone. It increases the likelihood of conviction and subsequent recidivism. And with an average length of stay at over 100 days, that's 4 times the national average. And it's essential we expedite case delays and at the very least provide a very basic function. When people are not produced for court, it further stresses an already backlogged court system. It can delay a person's release. It can eventually cause death. It delays connection to mental health programs and substance use disorder services if needed, and much, much more. Data provided to the council by the Department of Correction indicates that from January to March 2023, approximately 85% of people in custody who were scheduled to appear in court made it to the courthouse. This suggests that individuals are about as likely to return to court whether they're in jail or not. If they are at liberty, the rate remains nearly the same in terms of appearing at court. And imagine those that are incarcerated or detained are experiencing the significant harms of being inside. This legislation will build on the 2 units of appropriation secured in the fiscal '24 budget that require DOC to report on transportation, and the consistent leadership from the council and our speaker that the Department of Correction meet its basic operations and mandate to really provide care for those in its custody. Those are the minimum standards. So we're doing that. We're increasing transparency with this bill today, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember. That concludes our stated agenda, and with that, we'll take on topic questions related to the bills that we're voting on today.
On that Rikers reporting bill, there's a lot of reporting bills for the Department of Correction. Did they report broadly? Did they do a good job of actually responding to these and providing the information that they legally should?
Do you want to go there? You want me to go there?
You can start.
Okay. As far as the reporting bills for Department of Correction are concerned, we are still waiting for the timeliness of certain reports to get to the council. We discover these things through our oversight hearings when we really go in, Jeff, and ask those questions. We specifically ask for reports. Sometimes they are forthcoming, sometimes they are not.
And I would add, this gives a 30-day requirement. This will enable us to see how many people are getting to court on time. I feel like that's really important. I think a lot of what we do here in terms of codifying the responsibilities, in which some of them already exist, are really important. And that goes for the BOC video access bills we're introducing today. There's an MOU between these parties, Department of Correction and Board of Correction, but there is too much opportunity there for anything to be revoked at any given moment. And so because of the lack of transparency we've seen consistently and the reporting we're not receiving on time in order to fulfill our own charter mandated responsibilities, we will have to codify and legislate it. The Speaker understands that, and I'm proud of the way we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I'm going to ask about the recent Rikers death of a 27-year-old man related to this. We obviously don't know the cause of death. The medical examiner is determining the cause, but wanted to see if you had any comment about the information you and the council and your fellow council members are seeing regarding this death and what the process and how the process is playing out now that we see this as the 9th death in custody this year.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dan. You know, obviously, the council is very troubled by this trend, this disturbing trend. The information just came out to us this morning. There really hasn't been any significant input that we've received on the council side. We're still waiting to get more information on that. I don't even think his name was released. It was?
It was just released this morning.
Okay. So we're waiting to get more information on that. And again, obviously, we continue to be very distressed by the deaths on Rikers Island, and we continue to speak out on them.
So first of all, do you think the mayor's trip to Latin America is a good use of his time, and will the city benefit from it? And then additionally, council staff is out there picketing, saying you talk the talk on labor, but you aren't walking the talk. Are the requests of the council union reasonable? What's the latest with negotiations there?
Okay. As far as the mayor's trip is concerned, you know, we're looking for some valuable takeaways from that trip that he and his team will bring back to us. And we're hoping that, you know, the trip does prove to be something that will improve the city's policies and handling of responding to the arrival of people seeking asylum here. So we're looking forward to the feedback, you know, on that. As far as your second question is concerned, my answer is brief because negotiation is handled at the bargaining table and not in the media.
Then I had a follow-up on the mayor's trip.
Sure.
Part of how he's described the purpose of this is in part to discourage migrants from coming to the city. How do you feel about this, and do you feel it's the right message for the city to deploy?
Well, you know, I think that we need to be, you know, honest about the situation when it comes to migrants coming into the city. We are running out of room. I don't think that anybody here is going to question that. So the messaging around, you know, the situation here in New York should be honest, should be forthcoming, and I believe that it should relay the fact that we are out of room. However, we are still a sanctuary city, and that's something that we are very proud to be, you know, the city that opens migrants with open arms, hence our Statue of Liberty.
Thank you. Another cyclist was killed yesterday morning in Crown Heights, and I bring it up in the context of later on this month, the Dangerous Vehicle Abatement Program, which the council passed several years ago, it is going to lapse. It's going to sunset, and there are advocates in the street safety movement that are calling for either the council to reauthorize that program and strengthen it, or pass some sort of other program to rein in reckless drivers. The program obviously covered the worst of the worst reckless drivers. So maybe you can talk to me a little bit about what's on the agenda for you looking at this problem of 26 cyclist deaths, 70 pedestrian deaths this year, what you're planning to do.
Well, thank you for the question very much. You know, as you very well know, DVAP was created by the City Council. It was legislation that was intended to address reckless and dangerous driving. As we consider possibilities going forward, we're going to take a look at next steps. We are going to confer with the DOT. You know, obviously, any death is distressful for the council. We were very proud of the DVAP legislation, and going forward, we are going to once again take a look at recommendations from DOT, and this council will also have ours.
Yeah, just to follow up, the city did put out, the DOT did put out a fairly elaborate report, and they claim that the program ultimately was a failure for a couple of different reasons, you know, safety course, et cetera, lack of seizures of cars. It seems like they were saying they won't support a reauthorization of the same bill, but they might support something stronger. Is that something that's part of your thinking?
And again, going forward, we will evaluate all of it with DOT. Like I said, we were very proud of our legislation in the past. So going forward, we hopefully will make considerations in the future.
On the mayor's efforts to change right to shelter, does the council have any of its own ideas on how right to shelter should change, considering what we're dealing with migrants coming here? Or do you have the mayor's back on it, or think he should just leave it alone and let the decree stand as it is?
Well, as far as right to shelter is concerned, you know, we really, this council, strongly believes in the right to shelter, and the way that the Callahan Decree is formulated is the way that we believe that we need to go forward. Once again, we're looking towards solutions. When it comes to this overall crisis, we all have to continue to put our heads together and to work together to come up with solutions to the crisis itself.
So just to be clear, the mayor should not try to toy or change the Callahan consent decree, leave it as it is, and then deal with the situation as it unfolds?
While we understand, the mayor's thinking when it comes to changing the right to shelter laws, we still firmly believe in them.
And then I'd love to get your thoughts on the latest federal Munger report that published today. Do you think that it makes it increasingly clear that DOC is incapable of running jails and that a federal monitor should take over?
Quite frankly, I haven't seen the report, so I can't deliver anything without first seeing the report. I'm going to take a look at it, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.